Hey guys, Youngblood with you. Today we're doing our 13th episode of the Inbox where I'm answering all of your questions. So let's go ahead and get started and continue working through these. Lord Avitus said, question, how common do you feel death will be? I know it's quite a broad question as different lifestyles would come at different risks, but do you think there's going to be people who don't value life and feel enough systems will be in place to deal with them? I think death is going to be something that everybody's going to want to avoid, or at least that's what we've heard from CIG all along. They don't want you to be feeling like you can just go die, respawn, and there's not going to be any consequences. So, for example, if you've got insurance on your ship and your ship gets destroyed and you get killed along with it, you're probably going to have the insurance replacing the whole of your ship. However, if you don't insure your upgraded weapons, your upgraded shields, your upgraded engines, like those types of things are not going to be replaced unless you end up covering them with your additional insurances. So losing your ship is going to be a big deal in game. And if you haven't already read the Death of a Spaceman article from Chris a while back, I would highly encourage you to do so because it's really informative and really interesting to read. You also say, if you could touch on what you believe would happen if you lost a ship without insurance. Would I really lose my ship? I won't have to worry about it for at least a year, but don't want to let it slip my mind. Yes, if you lose your ship without insurance, you really lose your ship. That's it. Now, there's going to be things in game that make it really easy, and it's supposed to be incredibly cheap to encourage everybody to actually pick up the insurance. So if you're talking about, just having insurance, I imagine there's going to be things in game to allow you to auto renew your insurance. It's kind of yet to be seen how it's going to play out. There may end up being a deductible. I'm hoping that the insurance is just going to cover it, or maybe you could choose different tiers where you do have to pay a deductible, but it covers additional parts of your ships, or maybe you can pay less monthly to be able to to have a deductible, or pay more monthly, quote unquote, of in-game currency to not have a deductible. There's going to be different things, but bottom line is if you don't have insurance and your ship gets destroyed, you lose that ship. So don't let it slip your mind. Hopefully there's auto renewal so that doesn't become an issue. Alejo Ruiz Camauer, question, do you think stuff in game will cost a random number, or $1 equals 1,000 UEC? Example, would a Super Hornet be 500,000 UEC or 165,000 UEC since it's $165? It's not going to be random, but it's not necessarily going to be directly tied to the dollar amount either. I think what I've heard is what we see in game is actually more of a representation of like 20% of what things are going to cost, or I guess what we're paying in real money is going to be like a representation of what things are going to cost at like 20% of what it's going to cost in the game. So if something, if you pay $100 and that translates to $10,000, in the final release of this game, that may end up being, 80,000 or 100,000, something like that. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, and honestly, I don't know if CIG's figured it out. We've heard different things, like a constellation's going to take a week to earn. Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean a week of play time? Does that mean a week of in-game time? If it's a week of in-game time, is that for just constantly running, or is that a week of average gaming for that? So I don't think we have enough information to really answer it, but the number's not going to be random. It's going to be well thought out, but it's just not necessarily going to correlate to the real dollar amount that we're paying to pledge for the game. AR Razorback says that I may have already addressed this, but on release of the game, will I lose the ships that I have purchased? No. The ships that you're buying now have insurance. They're going to be with you. The only time you're going to lose your ships is if you don't have insurance and they get destroyed. But whatever you buy now, you get to have in the game, and that's what a lot of people are doing so they can start off with a larger fleet. Matt Whiteford says, I know there's a bunch of ways to retrofit every ship out there, but I can tell you're an Aegis fan and wondering how you'd see yourself using the Saber in the live game. I'm absolutely planning on using the Saber in the live game. It's a ship that I think is very capable. I think it's extremely effective in combat. It's got good weaponry, it's got good maneuverability, it's got good speed, and then you add stealth to it. I mean, it's borderline too good. But for me, I think where I see myself using it is for either ambushing or maybe trying to track people down. So if I'm going bounty hunting but don't have intentions of bringing somebody home, if it's like it's wanted dead or alive and I can just kill them, having a stealth ship that's fast and powerful means that you can sneak up on and actually attack. I also could see myself kind of as a military leader using the saber to kind of stay on the outside of the battle, to where I may not necessarily be a huge target for people because I'm coming in and out of the radar range, able to kind of coordinate some troops, but also able to jump in, do some damage with the good weaponry, and then bounce back out to coordinate the next attack or something like that. I think there's a lot of good things combat related you can do with the saber. It's obviously very limited to combat, but I think it's a good fit for a lot of different roles. Also, it kind of depends on what the composition of the fleet we're bringing is. If there's a bunch of people bringing things like Redeemers and Super Hornets and Retaliators, then being able to bring a saber or two along is going to allow you to have those fast type of a kind of interdiction type of interceptor type of ships that can actually get in and kind of fill a different role than what some of the other ships do. So it's more of a complementary factor. Nighthawk says, hey, Youngblood, do you think we'll have to spend money and time for routine maintenance on our ships, sort of like oil and filter changes? Yeah, I do think we're going to have to do that, and it's been alluded to by CIG as well. We know we're going to have to pay for repairs on our ship, so if you end up taking damage in a firefight, you're going to end up paying to have that fixed. I mean, you could still drive or fly your jalopy around, but you're not going to want to have your ship out and about in space where it's not actually structurally sound. So you are going to have to do things like maintenance. What all that ends up being, I'm not sure. Bottom line, though, is we know there's going to be wear and tear on ships. So while there may not necessarily be something as pragmatic as changing your oil, there's at least going to be things like your shield generator may break down over time and becomes more unreliable the longer you go. So that sort of maintenance you are going to have to do. Chris DeTrio, sorry, I messed you up. Congratulations on the adoption process. Being adopted myself, I can say that it's a very awesome thing that you do. Thank you. I've had a few questions about the adoption, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know that we are 2 months into having our profile live, meaning that anybody could choose us at any time now. While we haven't gotten that phone call yet, we have gotten some statistics saying that we are being viewed more frequently than others, and a couple of others have put us in their top favorite list, meaning that they could have either just not chosen us, or it could mean that they just still haven't made the choice. They may be very early in the pregnancy. So we're doing well as far as the statistics go. So I think it's a good possibility that we end up getting a baby here pretty soon. But on to your question, was wondering how you would feel if there's a system set up in the PU for players similar to that we have for Rec. Example, I have 5 ships in my hangar, some of which are multi-cruise ships. I obviously can't fly all of them at the same time, but would have no problem renting them out to players or orgs for the hour, day, or week. I think a lot of people are planning on trying to do this, and I don't think we've necessarily gotten an official gameplay mechanic about this to say that it is going to be able to be done. But even if it's built into the game, or whether it's not, there's one thing that has to be there, and then you can do it, and that's going to be the ability to transfer funds between players. And then it's about weighing somebody's reputation. If you look at somebody's reputation and they're positive, and they're willing to give you, 80,000 UEC now and 80,000 UEC after 2 days to give you your ship back, then all of a sudden you can make that happen. Now you have to go through the process of vetting them out. Then they could potentially steal your ship, and then you're going to have to rely on insurance. And then we kind of cross into the potential of where does fraud land as far as insurance goes, because that's an interesting way to game the system. So we're going to need more information, and I feel like that's an answer to a lot of these questions. But I think it's something that we're probably going to see in game. The question is just how official it's going to be and how that mechanic actually looks. Captain Webby says, do you think there's a research mechanic will be deep enough to include new metals and materials to improve performance, i.e. better protection and stealth, maybe improve the efficiency of components? I know it hasn't really been discussed, but would love to hear your thoughts. It has been discussed a little bit, specifically in regards to things like the Super Collider on the Endeavor. You're going to be able to play with atomic, the atomic makeup of stuff. You're going to be able to try and improve things. You can also overclock things like, your components in your ship to get better performance or to do different things. So yes, there is going to be stuff in there. Now, what does that end up looking like? Like, do you actually have to have a chemical or atomic background to be able to know how to do that stuff? Probably not, but it's also probably not going to be as simple as point and click. So I'm interested to see what the details are on it, but there is known things that we can do in game to try and make these things actually work better. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is Well, the long answer is still short. We'll need to see. And for our last question today, K-Bomb says, "Hey STL, I used to go by David DaCosta. I remember you. What is your thoughts on quantum drive interdiction? I started a thread on the RSI forums about it, kicked around the idea how it could come down to three basic technologies or methods. Interdiction by interception, interdiction using a Star Wars-style interdiction module or ship that can pull people out of QD, or interdiction by using a gravity pulse mine in which you buy a mine and place one where you think a ship will travel, and then you detonate it when you see a ship coming close on scanners." What I'm hoping for is closer to interdiction by interception. I think that's an interesting mechanic. It's a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite things about Elite Dangerous, the mini game that was actually built into interdiction. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I kind of enjoyed it just because it was just simpler than push a button and boom, you guys are in a firefight. I'm not sure about the gravity pulse mine. I think it's a good idea, but if you've ever seen how fast ships are traveling by in quantum drive, I think it would be hard to time that, especially with how big space is. That being said, if you kind of go with that Star Wars style that you're talking about, that's almost the Eve style as well. If you've got a ship that can generate a gigantic bubble, and if anybody flies through that bubble, they get ripped out, that may be something too. So if I had to guess, I would say it's probably either option 1 or option 2. But until we actually see what their plans are, it's hard to really say. I'm leaning more towards option 1 for the sole fact that Star Citizen seems to be very focused on the player doing as much as they can. It's supposed to be very immersive. So if they can have an option to give the player control to actually chase somebody down and yank them out, I think that's probably the method that we would see CIG going with. I think if we see something that's more like a big bubble, it's probably going to be more like a ship that sits in a fleet and prevents other ships from jumping away, as opposed to just yanking anybody out that comes within the area. So that's kind of where I land on that, but we'll have to see what they come up with. But I think any way they do it, interdiction is going to be a fun mechanic, and also kind of frustrating at the same time if you're the one getting interdicted. So that's it for this one. I'm going to have another one up probably tomorrow, so stay tuned for a whole lot more content. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.